Hello, everyone. Hi, Jed. Welcome. This was an interesting experience for you last time. Well, I hope it's an interesting experience for you this time. Part of me wanted to sleep and enjoy the ASMR. Part of me wanted to stay up and listen, since I college want to see what happens. I mean, these are meant as bedtime stories, so if you fall asleep, you fall asleep. And that I'll be doing my job at that point. Otherwise, you just get a story. But, I mean, these are all on the Strinova wiki, so you'll be able to read these yourself if like, you want to know the story, but, like, you fall asleep. And there's also going to be the VOD of this. And the previous VOD's actually already up, so if you want to watch that one, you're more than welcome to, and catch up on what you missed. But yeah, hi everyone, I hope you all are doing okay. I'm a little tired, and by a little I mean a lot, because I just did a 15-hour day yesterday. I was basically on the job for about 13 hours total, and I had 1 hour driving each way, so that was fun. It was actually a very good gig, though. I had a lot of fun with that gig. It's just that the very next day I had an 8-hour shift, so I'm a little tired. And also, because we're starting so late, that's why I thought we'd do some Strinova reading. But yeah, we're going to be reading a couple of the stories actually that we have here. So, and these are all going to be PUS members. So if you know Strinova, you know that there's basically 3 factions. There's the Scissors, there's Urbino, and there's PUS. So last time we read the stories of all the Scissors characters that are currently out, which are Meredith, Aika, and Ming. So today we're going to be reading 3 of the characters from PUS. So I'm aiming to do Leona, Flavia, and Michele. Depending on how long they are, we might do Chio as well. I don't know. I doubt we'll be reaching Galatea, who's the final one. But either way, let's do some reading today, shall we? I have the chat up on my side. I have my microphone very close to me. I have some water here. So yeah, let's get into this, shall we? So we're going to start with Leona's story. And Leona's story, by the way, this cover image cracks me up because this looks exactly like the you know that one meme of the guy that's explaining the like that has like a whole board and like red lines, like he's explaining like a conspiracy theory and like or something like that, and his hair is all like disheveled, and so this is exactly what this looks like to me. But anyway, Leona's character story: building dreams, working overtime. If anyone else has questions, ask them now. We still have time to solve them. Miss Leona, it's almost midnight. It's time to lock the conference room doors. Perfect. Let's work overtime tonight. Note that the story and artwork is sourced from the official Strinova Bilibili account. As this content is in Chinese only and has not been officially translated, the following content is the product of fan translation. Chapter 1. Welcome to PUS Engineering. The initial design drawings for Como's Tower were created here, and the exhibition hall still preserves the models made by the past engineers. The staff looked at the newly hired engineer with smiles on their faces. She had outstanding academic performance and lots of practical experience, making her the most anticipated new employee of the year. As a result, the onboarding guide was more patient than usual and took her to the exhibition hall for a visit. Her office was also ready for her to spend a relaxing and enjoyable adaptation period. After all, the turnover rate for young employees in the engineering department was always high, and they didn't want this aspiring youngster to be scared away by a hard life with overtime work. However, that girl seemed absent-minded the entire time. She kept looking at her watch, only looking up and expressing interest when introduced to early Strinovan residential models. The guide tried to hold back, but couldn't help but ask. Then, Miss Leona, do you have something urgent going on? No, nothing, Leona replied, smiling brightly. I'm just feeling a little impatient from finally being able to participate in a project. When can we visit the construction site? Visit the construction site? Please wait a moment, the guide stuttered. His smile disappeared, and she put on a pair of headphones and walked aside. After a few minutes, the guide returned and smiled at Leona again, replying, Since Miss Leona has such aspirations, we happen to be in need of an engineer for 2 projects. The guide proceeded to operate the terminal in his hand and explained in further detail. One is the new commercial plaza. Because of the large scale of construction, we need more manpower there. The other one is a residential renovation project, and their engineer, just resigned. I personally recommend the commercial plaza project, as it would look good on your resume. Okay, I understand. Please send me the details of the residential renovation project. Huh? The stunned assistant hesitated for a few seconds before reoperating the terminal and replying, Okay, I've sent the construction site location and related project information to your terminal. Are you sure you don't want to participate in the commercial plaza project? Leona shook her head and firmly replied, Thank you for your help. I'll take my leave now. Leona picked up the toolbox she was carrying, nodded to the guide, and left the carefully decorated, futuristic-looking engineering department exhibition hall with zero hesitation. Behind her, the guide held a hand to his forehead and mumbled to himself, What an energetic youngster she is. I hope I won't have to handle her resignation papers in the future. Time passes. Elmond Residential Area. As a settled city built for humans during Strinova's development stage, there were still some old buildings preserved there. In the present day, due to urban construction and technological iteration, this urban area became surrounded by more technologically advanced and glamorous buildings, gradually turning the old buildings into a gray, dilapidated scar in the heart of Strinova, in urgent need of demolishing and rebuilding. Leona overlooked the deserted construction site in front of her. She had heard about this project when she enrolled in the Department of Civil Engineering at the PUS Institute of Technology, but she didn't expect that it would still be in such a dilapidated state when she graduated and started working in the engineering department. The image of a bustling construction site had not come to fruition. After inspecting the rear of the construction robots, it seemed they hadn't been maintained for a long time. Hello? Instructor Leona, correct? A voice called out. The design assistant sitting at the door spotted Leona and the armband on her sleeve. Glad to help. Welcome. Before Leona could gauge the situation clearly, the assistant half-dragged, half-pulled Leona to a temporary office next to the construction site. I don't deserve this, I'm just a new engineer, the assistant muttered to herself. Leona smiled back, took off her backpack, and skillfully set up her workstation. Commonly used tools, electronic products, thermoses, everything had its fixed, unchanging position. Every item's placement was completely in line with ergonomics and Leona's personal habits, simple, efficient, and practical. Even if the work location changes, engineers can quickly adapt and get back to work. In the flash, the empty desk adopted Leona's style. Before the assistant could even finish her welcome speech, Leona had already moved on the handover document from the previous engineer. Wait, the assistant interjected, practically flying over to block Leona's screen. Facing Leona's puzzled gaze, the assistant took a deep breath and explained with a tragic look on her face. This construction site has had 5 construction engineers. The style planning for this residential area has been changed again and again, and the Urbino investors also have their own ideas. Since the 2 sides were unable to reach any sort of agreement, the engineers could only repeatedly make changes and work overtime to rework the design. Moreover, since the construction period has been extended for so long and the relocation costs are too high, the available budget for the construction itself keeps getting smaller, with more and more design restrictions. In short, this is not a good job. You still have time to leave. Cough. Leona, who was drinking water from her thermos, was startled by the sudden, frantic words and choked. She couldn't help but laugh. I see. It seems like there are some hard-to-solve difficulties. Come, let me take a look at the blueprint first. The assistant folded her arms and shook her head, refusing to give in, and reiterated. The difficulty lies with the client, not the design itself. Residential buildings are the easiest to design. On the contrary, the design of residential buildings is very difficult, Leona interrupted. It takes into account both the living and travel, integrates commercial activities with daily life, preserves the residents' original living habits, and on top of all of that, leaves room for possible future technological developments, allowing for stability and change to coexist. Designers need to restrain their urge for personal expression and make buildings that serve the long-term activities of tens of millions of people. The effort required to design them is no less than the required to design landmark structures such as shopping malls, office buildings, or parks. Sorry, I'm going to shift my microphone a little bit. There we go. The assistant was momentarily stunned and looked at Leona with a serious expression. I understand. She moved the screen aside and bowed towards Leona, then continued. I'll go deal with the process documents first. If you have any questions, feel free to call me. Leona nodded her head and replied, Thanks a lot. No, thank you. The assistant walked out of the temporary office and smiled with mixed feelings. Apparently, this is why the engineering department sent this new engineer here. Perhaps this long stagnant project will soon see great progress. Time passes. Inside her new office, Leona finally opened the handover document from the previous engineer. The next moment, bright red characters filled the entire screen. Leave now. The next 3 pages were filled with resentful ramblings of a former engineer. There were also a few drawings of stick figures and pig heads labeled Party A, kneeling in front of computers and in various kowtowing positions. Leona shook her head with a mixture of anger and amusement, continuing to turn the pages until she finally saw the project information in the main text. However, the project information was too detailed. The former engineer had attached all chat records and meeting summaries of communications with Party A, as if it was a silent accusation. Leona was skilled in extracting useful information from skimming over the emotionally charged words of both parties. Thanks to the dissatisfaction of the previous engineer, these detailed communications proved to be incredibly valuable first-hand information that was much more comprehensive than ordinary handover documents. It took Leona an entire week to sort out the needs of all parties in design for these old cases. To ensure continuity in her thoughts, she practically lived in her temporary office. No matter how late the assistant got off work every day, she would always see the lights on in the temporary office. On the 8th day, when the assistant showed up with work, she didn't see Leona. She probably couldn't take it anymore and just went on vacation, the assistant thought. However, when she opened company communications, she found a message from Leona during working hours. Out for inspection. Call me if there's anything urgent. What a motivated individual. Chapter 2. The residential area in the suburbs of Nitreville were bustling and full of life. The situation there was very reminiscent of that of the old town of Elmond, except the buildings were not old enough to be in urgent need of renovation. Moreover, since it wasn't the city center, the older buildings blended in well with the surrounding style, making the location quite suitable for a comparative investigation. Leona booked a homestay in a residential building, which is where she would spend her time the next week. The layout there bore the style of an early urban construction, which made Leona feel familiar and comfortable. It was as if she had returned to her childhood days, when she and her father looked at blueprints in the office. At 7 a.m., Leona bought a Bing from the breakfast shop downstairs and sat at the intersection, recording the flow of pedestrians and vehicles. The roads there were narrow and busy with various forms of transportation: hoverboards, skateboards, trams, and pedestrians. In just one morning, Leona observed 3 quarrels caused by collisions involving scratched vehicles. At 10 a.m., Leona appeared next to an old man who frequented that area to play chess, simultaneously observing the chess game and lighting coverage of the area. The sun had risen, but the street shops were blocked by the buildings. Moreover, the stagnant water runoff from the shop's cleaning activities pooled up there, creating a hygiene hazard. At noon, the old shop with a corner filled with people, and Leona finally managed to grab a seat. However, since most residents do not work in the surrounding area, if such a street were moved to a more compact element, the flow of people during mealtimes would be greater. At 4 p.m., when students got out of school, the canteen became busy. Leona set up a small table to make origami, and soon the children were crowded around her. Compared to the large shopping malls, these small shops were more popular with children. There aren't many children living in Element, and consumption here is relatively high. Convenience stores like this could be upgraded appropriately, but still need to be differentiated from large shopping malls. At 7 p.m., it was rush hour. The grocery stores became busy, and several well-known snack shops welcomed in a flood of customers, with even many out-of-towners coming to eat. We need to retain some of the specialty shops in residential areas and upgrade the storefronts, Leona muttered to herself, writing these thoughts down as notes whilst looking in the store. Because she was organizing this data, she arrived a little late and found out there was no room left in the store. I don't know if I can share a table. There. There were only 2 people sitting at a 3-person table in the corner. Even more coincidentally, the 2 people were wearing POS inspector uniforms. Hello, can I sit here? The short-haired girl among the 2 investigators quickly scanned Leona, then smiled cheerfully and replied, "Of course, please, take a seat." Leona put down her toolbox and extended her hand to greet them. POS Engineering Department, Leona. So you're a POS colleague? I thought so. Very few people are willing to share their table with investigators, the short-haired girl remarked, shaking Leona's hand. I'm Coconut, and this is Michele. The girl with the twin ponytails nervously stood up and saluted. Hello, miss. Junior Investigator Michele reporting. Don't worry. I just started working here, Leona replied with a smile. Seems that the hot and sour soup here is really good. Even the investigators came to check it out. Coconut covered her face and pulled Michele to sit down, as she had begun to attract attention. She explained, We're on a routine patrol in this neighborhood. We just finished our shift and came over to have a quick meal. Coconut motioned to the people queuing outside. Actually, I've wanted to try this restaurant for a long time. I finally got a shift change to this time slot, just in time to catch the queue. So that's how it is, Michele remarked. Her eyes popped wide open. She covered her mouth and whispered to Coconut. I thought you were trying to change the shift because of a big mission, but it was just for hot and sour soup. What do you mean by just? Arranging time frames properly to achieve multiple things at once is basic ability investigators should have. Yes, I understand. Seeing you investigators being so energetic puts me at ease, Leona remarked, laughing. Coconut's mouth twitched slightly. Please pardon me, this kid is quite lively. By the way, why is the engineering department here? If we want to renovate, we have to keep the store. Upon hearing Coconut's question, Michele looked over nervously. Oh, no. I'm in charge of renovation of the old residential area in Element. The situation is similar to here, so I came to investigate. I see, Coconut replied, putting a finger to her chin. I've heard of that project. It's said that Party A is quite difficult to deal with. Senior management and investors always have wild ideas. Leona shook her head. For me, Party A is not just the top management and investors. She looked out to the bustling storefronts, where the sound of laughter and aroma of food expressed the most authentic picture of life. The residents who will live there are my Party A. Okay, I support your way of thinking, Coconut exclaimed, carelessly patting Leona's shoulder with her hand. Keep going. I'm very familiar with this area, so just let me know if you need any help. Leona's eyes lit up, and she quickly produced a voice recorder. Then, I'll ask you some questions before food is served. Time passes. A week later, Leona, who had learned a lot, returned to the temporary office at the construction site with her voice recorder low on memory and devoted herself to sketching designs again. This work enthusiasm also infected the assistant, as she began to take initiative regarding material organization. However, as the days progressed, the assistant became visibly anxious when she learned that the client, who had a new engineer, began to pay attention to the drawing's progress. Finally, under the assistant's nervous gaze, Leona was about to begin her first report. In the virtual conference room, Leona stood in front of the projection board, forming a triangle with the investors and senior executives of the engineering department. Now, I will report on the plan for renovation of the old residential area. Leona spoke confidently. She has already memorized all the data regarding the old residential area. Before even drawing the blueprint, she measured every inch of soil on the construction site and even knew how many pipe joints were in that area. Regarding the quantity and appearance of the trash cans, the urban aesthetics department head queried. Bang. Leona produced a map of street public facility design and distribution. Have you considered the volume of traffic in the commercial district? An investor asked. Bang. Leona quickly displayed concise summary charts and detailed raw data to back it up. We don't have that much budget, the finance department head challenged. Bang. A material quotation and project budget table popped up in his face. Bang. 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 Every time Leona answered a question, the assistant listening in seemed to hear a sound like a slap to the face. Having also been tortured by this project for a long time, she felt a sense of relief and empathy for her former engineers, and tears began to flow down her face. Finally, someone could silence these people. Hello, Spacey. Welcome. How you doing? You don't need to worry about being late. We're just reading some stories. Hope you're doing well tonight. Feel free to relax with us. The briefing lasted for 5 whole hours. The investors' voices were tinged with fatigue, but Leona, who had been bombarded with criticism, remained calm. She simply picked up her thermos, took a sip of warm water, and continued on. Finally, the engineering department's director interrupted with a light cough and concluded, Let's stop here for today. Leona's drawing still needs optimization. Please consider all the issues raised today. At that moment, the assistant's heart was in her throat out of fear that Leona would leave in anger. However, the engineer that had worked overtime for a whole month and received nothing but negative criticism simply nodded and accepted everything with a calm expression. They're being unreasonable, the assistant lashed out as soon as the meeting concluded. Miss Leona, you don't have to change it. They won't be able to tell even if you do change it. Your design is perfect. They're just being nitpicky. Leona shook her head and smiled and patted her on the shoulder, explaining, There's no such thing as a perfect design. There may be better solutions to the problems they raised. This project affects many people's livelihoods, so it's reasonable to think over it some more. Leona stretched her arms and sighed. Thanks for accompanying me to such a long meeting. Go home and rest first. What about you, Miss Leona? Some new ideas just emerged from that meeting, and I plan to strike while the iron is hot. It's okay. You don't have to work overtime with me, Leona explained. I know I have a one-track mind when it comes to work, and it won't force others to do the same. After all, not everyone can handle such intensity of work. Excuse me. The lights in the temporary office were on all night. No, they remained on for many nights. Since encountering her clients, Leona managed to obtain their contact information. Whenever there was a slight change or update to her drawings, she would synchronize with them in time regardless of whether it was 6 a.m., 12 p.m., or even 3 a.m. Collecting the clients' replies became the assistant's only job. This was the first time in her career that she had to prompt her clients. Whenever Leona asked, Has Party A not responded yet? She would secretly smile and send an urgent email with a gentle but firm tone, with a sense of revenge in her heart. Finally, whether because the clients had nothing left to say or couldn't keep up with Leona's work intensity, The renovation drawing that had been pushed and pulled for a long time was approved. On that day, a grand celebration party was held on the construction site, and everyone felt like they had finally made it. Leona stood amongst them as if she were observing the residents moving into their new homes, donning a hard hat. The scene that played out before her overlapped with a scene in her head from many years ago, and she laughed. The ladder to our dreams had successfully been built with another cornerstone. Chapter 3. Difficulty level S, danger level A, a priority level C. Are you sure you want to apply for participation in this project? I'm sure. You've thought it over? I have thought it over. Bang. A heavy seal was affixed to the signature, and in the distant sky, a construction crane roared. Bang. A cannon went off, and colorful ribbons fell all over Leona's shoulders. Congratulations, Miss Leona, on your successful promotion. Kokona and Michele, who had shown up to join in the fun, held out banners they had prepared long ago. One read, "Plan approved in one go." The other read, "Become Party A." Leona popped open a large bottle of Coca-Cola with a great force, and as the soda foam sprayed out, everyone laughed. The residential renovation project was successfully completed, and the residents, who had lived in their resettlement home for a long time, finally returned to their own homes. Leona was also successfully promoted to a senior engineer, and she had one less client to deal with. After taking a large gulp of Coca-Cola, Leona clapped her hands together and interrupted. "Everyone, I have something important to announce." The previously laughing colleagues quieted down and looked over. Leona coughed slightly and continued. "Since I already have enough qualifications and project endorsements, I've successfully applied for the reconstruction project of Neutralville's No. 3 bridge." The atmosphere seemed to freeze as the smiles on their companions' faces froze. Neutralville's No. 3 bridge was located on the Neutralville outskirts, connecting a settlement. Besides this bridge, only a small path connected the settlement to the outside world. The building materials and construction workers, including Leona and her father, the engineer at that time, entered the settlement through that bridge. Neutralville No. 3 bridge was a lifeline to that settlement's people. Many, many years ago, Leona first observed a construction project there. The images of numb, tired people, the roar of collapsing buildings and flying dust reflected in her young eyes were deeply imprinted in her mind. Leona's father was in charge of that project at that time, and she lived there with her father for several years. It wasn't until high-rise buildings were built on that land that the gloomy eyes of those people were rekindled with light and smiles. Those smiles accompanied her through countless days and nights of study and work. Since then, she had torn down a beautiful castle she had carefully built with building blocks and used those basic building blocks to build houses in order to give these wooden figures a home. If dreams have a birthplace, then that settlement was the hometown of Leona's dreams. But she had also not been back to her hometown in a long time. As for the bridge that was so important to that settlement, it had collapsed in a reverse-string storm that could never be rebuilt. The bridge's collapse was the direct reason why Leona chose the POS's engineering department despite Urbino's offer of the high salary. She had hoped that one day she'd be able to rebuild it herself. She wanted to see smiles on people's faces again, smiles of joy of people having their homes restored. Why did you choose that project? It's too difficult and not of high priority. If there's an accident or a budget shortfall, it'll affect your career, an older colleague disapprovingly expressed, shaking his head. Your professional title and award are just a bridge away. If there is no bridge, it'll be difficult for construction or rescue teams to arrive in time should a natural or man-made disaster occur in that settlement, Leona firmly responded. My title does not require this bridge, but those people need this bridge. But it's just a bridge. It needs to span the air above the sea of strings. without any solid ground in the city to build and to serve as a foundation. Moreover, due to the influence of airflow and overstring storms, robots can only be used in very limited capacities. In the world of Strinova, where building, materials, and construction all rely on machinery, the only thing that still requires manpower is this bridge. Excuse me. No one was willing to take on this kind of challenge with no benefits and only disadvantages, because it entails that the architect is not only the designer, but also responsible for the construction themselves. Even if there isn't any danger in real life, falling from heights is still a fear engraved on human instinct. Okay. Since Leona has such ambitions, as friends, we can't just stand by idly and watch. Just as the conversation was about to stop in its tracks, Coconut jumped out and placed her hands firmly on Leona's shoulders. That settlement hasn't been patrolled for a long time. I don't know if there will be trouble. Let me lead the team to protect the engineers. Coconut, Leona started, closed her eyes, swallowed her words of rejection, then turned to wink at Coconut. Then, welcome to Leona's engineering team. Time passes. In the outer suburbs of Neutreville, the broken number 3 bridge waited in the wind for many years of engineers willing to repair it. Leona looked at the vague outline of the settlement in the distance, holding an intercom with a serious expression, and announced, "The reconstruction project of Neutreville's number 3 bridge has officially started." Amidst the howling wind, Leona jumped up, and strings of energy gathered, compressed, and released in the palm of her hand. A square block embedded in the damaged bridge pier at a shallow incline. Superstrings are accustomed to flying and falling. Using this block as a foothold, she kept jumping up and down from high places, judging the landing point and constructing blocks. A road, built by Leona's superstring abilities, extended out and became the cornerstone of the bridge. The faint light of the string energy network brings a path of hope, reconnecting the shore with the distance. In the first phase, Leona calculated all footholds needed for constructions based on blueprints, and used her string energy blocks to build a foundation for construction. In the second phase, construction materials were continuously delivered. Coconut and Michele showed up to help, and the 3 superstrings flew up and down the blocks. Construction itself wasn't difficult as the largest problem. The footholds needed for construction of the high-altitude bridge had already been solved. In the third phase, the main structure of the bridge was completed, with exterior decoration assigned to the municipal government. In short, the bridge was now open to traffic. There were no construction robots, no bustling construction sites, no grand approvals, not even endless meetings. The bridge that was rejected by all prior engineers finally had its last cornerstone laid, thanks to the efforts of a small 3-man construction team. The completion ceremony of the bridge was very low-key. Leona stood at the other end of the bridge, looking far away at the long-lost settlement and the birthplace of her ideals. Although she could only hear the howling wind, she seemed to hear the cheers from the other side. Ding! The communicator vibrated slightly, but the message didn't come from any project group. It was an invitation. Are you interested in talking about the core construction of Gomos? Your talents are enough to help build the world. Since the world needs this cornerstone, Leona muttered to herself, closing her eyes and nodding as the wind whistled past her. Then I have no reason to refuse. The engineer turned around and started to rush toward her next project. The client this time is this: the People's New World. The end. That was Leona's character story, building dreams and working overtime. Okay. Ooh, this should be an interesting one. We're going to be moving on to Flavia's story now. And this should be interesting too, because I actually don't know too much about Flavia's lore. I know that she's a commander for PUS, but I don't know too much else beyond that. Just gonna take a drink of water. Let us begin the next story. Flavia's character story, Flames to Butterflies. If a butterfly loses half of its wings, is destruction the only path left for it? Destruction is also rebirth. Only through fire can one break out of their cocoon, and only fragile butterfly wings can pass through the dark storm and reach the light on the other side. Note that this story and artwork is sourced from the official Strinova Bilibili account. As this content is in Chinese only and has not been officially translated, the following content is the product of fan translation. Chapter 1. Neon lights cut psychedelic shapes into the dark night sky. This is the busiest street in Nutriville, filled with bright lights, bustling crowds, and an undercurrent of good and bad people alike behind the bright windows. An inconspicuous, dilapidated truck was parked in the alley, blending in with the messy garbage piled right next to it. But if someone were to open the truck's trailer, they would find a secret inside. The mobile command station of PUS's secret intelligence agency, Compound I. The advanced command and defense facilities installed in the trailer turned the truck into a small fortress. At that moment, the command station carried out work in an orderly manner. According to intelligence intercepted by Compound I, an individual was plotting to leak PUS's urban development plans. Their mission: uncover the culprit behind the scenes and obtain any relevant evidence. 2 weeks of electronic tracking and biometric evidence revealed that the target's individual would head to the bar to drink at the same time each week, with most transaction and confidential talks with the contact also taking place here. At that time, 2 Intelligence Bureau senior agents were stationed in the store, disguised as a waiter and customer respectively. At 10:30, the target entered the bar. According to the plan, the waiter would use introducing the available spirits as an opportunity to tap the target. Then, the customer would approach the target and start a conversation. The activities of the frontline agents were transmitted in real time to the command station through monitors. The team leader watched the agents execute the plan according to the standard procedures and proceeded to take off his headphones, satisfied. However, when he turned to look at the 2 rookies behind him, an indescribable look appeared on his face. The team lead was incredibly dissatisfied with the 2 rookies assigned by his superiors. What was happening at present was no exception. The girl on the left was holding up a notebook and recording everything in detail. Her stupid look completely lacked the professional qualities of an agent. As for the individual on the right, the team leader re-examined the tall figure. While she looked honest, was wearing a proper uniform, and had her hair in a standard ponytail, her eyes were blank, as if she were just distracted. Could it be possible that someone like her was a superstring? The team leader's expression turned increasingly grim. Superstrings are considered special in PUS's promotion system. Only they could complete some difficult tasks and would be awarded with 3 consecutive promotions. Perhaps this woman would become his boss before long. The team leader gloomily looked at the two rookies again. The young man taking notes noticed his superior's dissatisfaction and nervously stood at attention. But the super string didn't even notice him. Damn it, this newbie won't even take me seriously. The team leader gritted his teeth. He thought about how, after this operation was over, he would find a way to pin her on some small mistakes to make her understand the meaning of respecting one's superiors. Flavia didn't deduce what was going on in the team leader's mind because she was, indeed, distracted. Or, strictly speaking, her attention had been redirected from the command center to the bar. Her butterflies landed lightly and stealthily on the senior agents conducting the mission, bringing part of her senses into the action. These butterflies were not yet under her complete control, although they moved as she wished. They always disturbed her perception of reality. However, this also meant that Flavia could grasp the situation better than the team leader from his monitor. The target is about to notice, Flavia mumbled softly, as if talking to herself. Such a soft voice would have been difficult for others to hear, but as the team leader had already developed paranoid delusions, he was instantly stressed. Slam. The team leader slammed his fist into the table so hard the display screen shook. Listen here, newbie. Self-righteousness is taboo in intelligence work. Don't report. Target individual has left early. A low voice suddenly reported from the headset. What? The team leader's unfinished words got stuck in his throat, and he proceeded to relay orders. You two keep an eye on the remaining lead. I'm sending the rookies to intercept. But team lead. Go. My team members are quite conscientious, the team leader thought. He raised his head towards the two rookies and continued. Go ahead. I'm giving you a chance to prove yourself. The two quickly arrived at the bar's back door. Flavia proceeded to undo her neatly tied ponytail, tug at the collar of her shirt, and casually smear some booze from the discarded bottle on her dress. Upon donning her improvised disguise, Flavia's temperament changed drastically, so much so that even the other rookie with her found her unfamiliar. As the atmosphere became tense, the other rookie, who was previously huddled up in the corner, mustered his courage and greeted his partner. Flavia? Do you know why our team leader asked us to come? Why? Flavia replied slightly carelessly as her senses were tugged back by the butterflies. The target individual was expected to appear in 3 minutes. How to stop them? I've already used my second chance after a failed mission. If I fail this time, I'll fail the assessment. I still have a younger sister to support, the girl trailed off, her voice already tearful. Upon hearing those keywords, Flavia's senses, previously diverted by the butterflies, briefly returned to reality. So that's how it is. You're also an older sister. She exhaled deeply and smiled at her partner, replying, Don't worry, we won't fail. The girl stared blankly into Flavia's unreadable eyes. You wait here. I'll handle everything. Chapter 2. Hey, Flavia. Where are you taking the target individual? Whilst Flavia was fixing her hair, Flavia threw away her headphones and deliberately poured wine over the hidden camera on her lapel, leaving only the listening device. Nope, ad break. Hold on. Sorry about that. I want to use this opportunity real quick to catch up on Discord, so don't mind me. this is helping you guys. I really do. These nights and like saying these and like repeating these stories has been pretty soothing for me. So I hope I've been able to pass that on for you guys as well. Especially with how hard things have been for a lot of people. I'm learning this year has kind of sucked for a lot of people, but hopefully we'll keep getting through it okay, and just appreciate the little things. Okay. Break's just about ending. Welcome back, everybody. Let's restart chapter 2. Hey Flavia, where are you taking the target individual? While fixing her hair, Flavia threw away her headphones and deliberately poured wine over the hidden camera on her lapel, leaving only the listening device on her cuff. She turned to the already attacked targets and observed them carefully. The applied butterfly scale powder should have already affected their brains, forcing them to answer every question. Is this really okay? The girl next to her shakingly asked. It's against the rules. Flavia made a silencing gesture to her partner and began softly asking questions. Who were you waiting for? Waiting for Urbino. What did you promise them? Some information. Information that business people like. What did they give you in return? The target broke into a satisfied expression and mumbled. Lots of money. Lots of money. A confession was obtained. Flavia's mind relaxed, and the butterflies instantly dissipated into a string of light. You guys are... Drat. The hallucinogenic effect wore off too quickly, and the target woke up. Bang! Flavia slammed the target's head against the wall, and his body crumpled to the floor. Hello? What's going on? Hello? 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 An impatient voice rang out from the headset. Flavia poured the remaining drink left in the bottle onto the ground and nonchalantly replied, Report. Mission complete. Time passed. In the meeting room, Compound I Intelligence Bureau Captain Schroeder looked through Flavia's information. Flavia, former employee of POS's Planning Bureau, and a conservative individual with either major achievements nor a bad record. Later, she accidentally turned into a superstring and joined the Intelligence Bureau by referral from the Intelligence Bureau's director. The only other noteworthy info was that during Operation Code C, her twin sister Sylphina, a POS search team logistics worker, was unable to be reconstructed after injury and was declared dead shortly thereafter. Witnesses recalled that countless purple butterflies flew out from the fire, which was similar to Flavia's superstring ability. Flavia, your team leader has filed a complaint about you. Do you want to appeal this? No need. Compound Eyes are intelligence spies serving the top brass. They are nor armed, do not judge, and do not fight. They only collect and transmit intelligence. To the eyes of outsiders, it is no different than the Arton City paparazzi, Schroeder explained, closing the document. But I think the value of Compound I is more than that. The director's expectations of us are also more than that. It's just that there are too many mediocre people and a lack of opportunities, Flavia lightly commented. However, things seem to be taking a turn for the better. Schroeder continued, pushing the document in front of Flavia. The organization has someone who dares to challenge the rules, and she happens to be a superstring, not subject to the weapons restriction order. The document listed clues Flavia wished to know. In Operation Code C, the attack meant to have been countered by the main combat team was instead hit the area of the station logistics team, inflicting casualties on the logistics personnel. The incident was later classified as an accident caused by intelligence oversights, and Compound I was summarily punished. Perhaps due to being unwilling to take the blame, the Intelligence Bureau secretly conducted its own investigation and uncovered many suspicious things, including struggles and conflicts between high-level factions. Flavia ran her trembling fingers down the casualty list. One name was like a key, instantly opening the floodgates of her mind. Time passes. Big sis, are you angry? I'm sorry, I won't watch horror movies at home next time. That's not what I'm angry about, Flavia replied. She had just gotten off of work from the POS Planning Bureau and hadn't changed out of her business attire yet. She spoke to her sister in a rare moment of seriousness. Selfina, I saw your employment information. Yeah, I can't be the only one working. My health has improved after coming to Strinova. I don't have to stay at home like before. The world of Strinova is much more dangerous than you think, not to mention that you're joining the search team. It's just logistics, sis. You don't have to worry. How could I not worry? Flavia and Selfina are identical twins. In rare cases, twins will compete for nutrients in their mother's womb. In extreme cases, one twin might even absorb the other. When Selfina was born, she was curled up in a small ball, and her cry was very weak, in sharp contrast to Flavia's loud cry. It was obvious that Flavia had been the winner in the battle for survival. Later, humans on Earth began to migrate to Strinova, and the two sisters also arrived in this new space through the human corridor. However, during observation at the Long Gallery Drawing Institute, Flavia discovered a hard-to-accept fact. Selfina was not only physically weak, but her consciousness sequence was also incomplete. The string sequence for fragility meant one doomed destiny. If she was seriously injured, she would be unable to be reconstructed and only face death. Flavia did not tell Selfina this bad news. After all, through Strinova, her sister finally had a healthy body and could enjoy a normal life. So, she just needed to prevent her sister from ever needing reconstruction. Judging from the current situation, there shouldn't be a way to disrupt the onboarding process. Fortunately, my sister's job is in logistics. It overlaps with mine, so I can take care of her when the time comes. When thinking about it that way, it actually isn't bad for the two of us to work together. Organizations hostile to PUS are frequently active, and leaving Selfina at home might actually be more dangerous compared to staying at PUS. This is how it should be. So why would a logistics team head to a battlefield? That attack, why did it happen in that alley instead of where the main team was? My sister cannot withstand any setbacks, so as her older sister and protector, I have to choose the safest path for her. Study hard, don't make many friends, and after graduation, join PUS's Planning Bureau and work a routine job. Like many ordinary people, being ordinary represents security and stability, in a sense. Such teachings continued through Flavia's younger years until the fire burned everything down. The fragile butterfly that should have been protected in the greenhouse turned to ashes while its failed protector was left in a daze, immersed in a fantasy of ordinariness. She had the same hairstyle as she had in the Planning Bureau and the same lukewarm attitude towards work. The only seeming difference between Compound I and the Planning Bureau was moved to a different office. Butterfly wing scales can cause hallucinations, and she was merely the first person to hallucinate so. Flavia suddenly realized that she had been trapped in this butterfly dream for a long, long time since the fire. Really, Who am I imitating? I've been competing with my sister for survival and nutrition since the womb. I'm a natural predator. Ordinariness is so fragile that those in power can crush it with just a flick of their fingers. I should definitely fight for it. Chess pieces can never control their own destiny. If they want to break free, they must become the chess player, or even the one who sets the rules of the chessboard. Long-suppressed grief and anger ignited within Flavia, who was like a frozen pupa thrown into a raging fire, grasping for a chance amidst the searing pain to break out of the cocoon. Just like the butterfly that flew out of the fire that day. If PUS had her biography, it would read something like this. The legendary captain of the Compound Eye Special Investigation Team, the Phantom Butterfly, was born at this very moment. PUS's eye is about to make a move and stir up a hurricane with her seemingly weak butterfly wings. But since no one had been able to explore the inner world of superstrings, this heart-wrenching transformation can only be hidden behind closed doors, silently restrained in a tightly dressed butterfly hairpin, with only the scars of her palms serving as indicators of what happened. Chapter 3. Target has arrived home. Permission to directly enter. Patience, or the backup. Catch them all in one fell swoop. Captain Flavia. As an intelligence unit, we seem a bit too radical. From the moment we pick up our weapons, we're no longer just an intelligence force. Move out. Purple, butterfly carrying smoke engulfed the scene first, causing panic. Butterflies? How are there butterflies? Compound eyes? Since when? Everyone knows that PUS has a secret intelligence unit, but no one takes them seriously. After all, those things with compound eyes can only see what's in the ground. At least, until they grow a pair of butterfly wings, rise up with the wind, slip through every hole, and dig out deep and ugly secrets. There's a rumor that black butterflies are messengers from hell and will destroy everything you have. Everyone in PUS was in danger for a while, as if there was some sort of unspeakable, invisible terror. Once a termite has tasted the sweetness, it will not easily give up the sugar as it has obtained. A tall figure emerged from the butterfly shadows with a soft, elegant female voice that sounded like the call from hell. How are there butterflies? Of course it's because here's the nourishment butterflies like. The panicked target raised his pistol and fired randomly, but couldn't even hit the wings of a butterfly. In the next moment, a ghostly figure appeared behind him and pressed the cold muzzle of a gun against the back of his head. Wait, I surrender. You're investigating, right? I have information. Shh. It's too late. The pieces have already been placed. There's no room for you. The battle ended very quickly. Or perhaps it wasn't a battle at all. Instead, a complete, crushing defeat. Team leader, finishing touches complete. The girl that previously trembled with fear was no longer afraid of guns and fighting. Now, she was a core member of Flavia's team. Flavia looked deeply into her eyes until she grew nervous. Team lead? Flavia nonchalantly looked away. You did well. Let's go. Yes. Time passed. The base of Compound Eyes has undergone a complete transformation. Schroeder's new office was as luxurious as a congressman's. The once low-key chief of intelligence had become very popular since his debut. Allies might still escape, but political enemies would be wiped out. Even the top brass's decisions was subject to the intelligence provided by the Compound Eye. Schroeder now no longer directly acts. Instead, sitting in the office all day and controlling the entire PUS News Center. He was busy lighting a cigar filled with Bablo powder when Flavia walked in. Bablo energy can't be absorbed by Strinovans in this way, as doing so would cause the previous energy to wastefully dissipate into the air. But this was a new trend among the parliamentarian class. This kind of cigar cannot be bought with money, and represents power and status. Thanks for your hard work, team leader Flavia. Flavia did not respond. The former intelligence agent seemingly sensed something, and he quietly grasped the pistol in the drawer under his table. During this silent confrontation, Flavia suddenly let out a wry smile. Last week, the head of the Planning Bureau's Energy Department proposed energy conservation regulations during a high-level meeting, prohibiting businesses from marketing ineffective bubble products. And now the person in charge has become food for the butterfly. Of course you're not clean. The equally dirty polarization laboratory has always had very high resource allocation, with the whereabouts of 1/5 of the research resources unknown. It's obviously not a top research institution, but the compound's eye's tentacles have never been able to reach in. Captain Schroeder. No, Intelligence Minister Schroeder. Those who are greedy for nectar will become prey. Rustle. While the office was covered in thick carpets and the soft plush muffled the sounds of Flavia's movements, Schroeder seemed to hear the footsteps of the devil. Intelligence agents tend to not like this kind of carpet because, after stringification, walking on the carpet tends to make more noise than walking on smooth tiles. And the targets, the termites, love this kind of carpet. Luxurious, soft, and prone to accumulating filth and dirt. Flavia walked in a semicircle around the table, with Schroeder's eyes fixed on her the whole time, the handle of the gun slipping in his hand due to cold sweat. He forced a smile and replied, "I was negligent, Flavia. You are definitely the primary contributor to the armed part of the compound eye." He pointed to the safe behind him and continued, "The things in there are what I left for you. Don't worry, I didn't forget your share." The moment his gaze shifted, Flavia transformed into a butterfly, and then the next second appeared right next to the safe. Her fingers brushed gently across the cold metal, like caressing the cheek of a baby in its cradle. "You were saying?" The door to the safe bust open, and countless butterflies swarmed out, turned into strings of light right in front of Schroeder. As for the interior, it was completely empty. Schroeder stepped back in fear, raising the gun in his sweaty palm at Flavia. "Don't forget, Flavia, you're just my subordinate." "You seem to have made a mistake," Flavia countered, summoning a butterfly and letting it rest on her fingertips. At that point, she had gotten good enough at controlling the butterflies to the point that they no longer flew around her too much and disturbed her senses. "It seems that you regard the player sitting across from you at the chessboard as your own chess piece. As for why I had this misconception as a chess player, I like to be involved in the game myself. I didn't expect you to have such a misunderstanding. I'm very sorry." The power-obsessed executives had long forgotten that what feared people was not this office, but the black butterflies. The person sitting behind that desk was not irreplaceable. Time passes. The power transition within the compound eye seemingly didn't cause any ripples. To the outside observers, it was only a matter of time before the butterflies devoured the old, weak king. The top brass held meetings one after another regarding this. Because Schroeder had been in that position for many years, they knew him inside and out. However, when Flavia suddenly appeared, no one could figure out her background. Intelligence is like a large cake. And when it changes hands, all the greedy wolves want to take a piece of it. Behind the pitch-black curtain, Large monsters wearing unclear masks whispered, "Her methods are too drastic. I can't deduce her intent. Is she loyal to PUS? Who's she working for? She's uncontrollable. Make her disappear. Make her disappear. Make her disappear. Flavia is mine." In the dark room, a beam of light shined down and illuminated a single individual. She was a kind old lady who instantly made people think of the word grandmother. Many people in PUS had seen her. She usually liked to buy a bowl of red bean soup in the cafeteria, take it to the garden, and slowly drink it. She always chatted with people she met that wore a PUS work badge. After the fire, she sat beside the bed of Flavia, who had just awakened to becoming a super string alongside a fascination of butterflies, and led her into the compound eye. "Since she's yours, relax. Just leave it be. Take good care of her." While they were discussing whether to tear the butterfly to pieces in that dark room, Flavia had already taken over the entirety of the compound eye. Team Leader Flavia, no, Captain Flavia, is amazing. I still remember the first time I went on a mission with you. I admired you so much. "Is your sister okay?" Flavia suddenly interrupted. "Huh?" The girl helping Flavia tidy up the office looked up in confusion. "Schroeder asked you to stay with me, clean up evidence, and monitor the operation. I should have paid you a lot for this. Your sister's life should be getting better. What a lucky girl." The cup in the little girl's hand slipped onto the floor tiles, where the carpet had been removed and shattered into pieces. Flavia helped her block the flying porcelain shards. "Don't be afraid. The reckoning is over. People you always use weakness as excuses to cover up their greed, feebleness, and incompetence. But this isn't an unforgivable sin." Tears welled up in the little girl's eyes. "Don't cry. It's not time for you to cry yet." When the security bureau's director walked in, she saw Flavia leaning against the desk, arms folded, and the girl kneeling on the ground at her feet, crying. "What's wrong?" an old and kind voice inquired. She stopped above the girl's head and gently patted her on the hand. "Did Flavia bully you?" "It was my fault. I'm sorry. It was my fault." After leading the girl out of the office, the hunched old figure stood up straight up, revealing the demeanor of a soldier from her previous youth. "Is this the deputy you picked?" "For now. Did you get what you wanted?" Flavia gave a wry smile and replied, "Madam, I said that my enemies are the termites of PUS. As long as they still exist, I will never get what I want." "Termites? As long as there is wood, termites will continue to appear. And as you are standing right next to this pool of honey, how can you guarantee that you won't become one of them?" "I understand your expectations for PUS and the compound eye. It must be very painful for you to keep changing chess players, only to watch the clean chess players get corrupted by the sweetness of power. But if you focus all your attention on the chessboard, you will inevitably ignore the elephant in the room." The director seemed to guess what Flavia was going to say, and the lights under her sagging eyelids flashed. "Have you ever thought that the rules are the root cause of everything? PUS, and even the rules of the entirety of Strinova, are the breeding ground of everything. Chess players move within the rules and will be unknowingly swallowed up by the rules. In the sports stadium of the Earth Age, only overly powerful athletes will always upset the balance, and the rules will change accordingly. I'm in this game to break the rules. Madam, are you afraid that the rules you set during the Great Immigration Era will be broken down and reconstructed now?" The eyes of the two generations met. It was a challenge between the new blood and the old. The future, whether it's PUS's or this world, it'll eventually be handed over to you youngsters. The old guard admitted that they had lost all their vitality and lowered their heads, like an old wolf giving way to a young challenger. Then it would be disrespectful to refuse. PUS changed that day. Countless chronic problems resurfaced, unresolved cases, secret accidents. A large number of files were sent to the Compound I's Intelligence Processing Center in a continuous stream. A slight change in the rules brought about a storm. The Compound I hung high above PUS like a sword of Damocles, fighting against the darkness buried deep in the organization. Gradually, people rarely mentioned the black butterflies that once instilled great fear. The butterfly wings, as sharp as knife blades, left the stage and turned into suspending, crisscrossing threads on the chessboards. Still waters run deep and permeate everywhere. And that is the end of Flavia's character story, Flames to Butterflies. Hello Patrick, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome to the green team. And I'm doing okay today, I'm just very tired. I hope you're doing well. Feel free to relax with us. Okay. We'll do one more story tonight. And that will be Michelle's. It was interesting. Flavia is still kind of a mystery to me. I got Shiny Meryl on my birthday, August 31st on Pokemon Go. I was shocked. It's perfect. Congrats. Happy late birthday also. I know we're like over a week late, but yeah, congrats on the Shiny and happy late birthday. Okay. I'm just gonna drink some water real quick. I baked my own birthday cake, red velvet and strawberry cake together with cherry frosting. That sounds really good. I hope that was really good. It sounds really good. Time for Michelle's character story, Super Player. Yugiri, I'm leaving Protector to you. I gotta go. Huh? Why? Because I don't want to have to write a self-reflection report. Note that the story in artwork is sourced from the official Strinova Bilibili account, as this content is in Chinese only and has not been officially translated. The following content is the product of fan translation. Chapter 1. You have a new email. Please check it. Not now. This email's pop-up window blocked the entire screen. This was a critical moment in the game's final boss battle. The warrior with cat ears in-game had her vision blocked. After a panicked move, she still fell to the hands of the boss, who only had a sliver of HP remaining. 4 bright red words popped up. Challenge failed. Michele threw off her headphones and sank into the sofa. Darn it. She poked at the sleeping Protector beside her and asked, You feel bad as well, right? Protector shook and squeaked. Its camera raised up in confusion, waiting for its master's instructions. Time to see who's disturbing my rare vacation time, Michele declared. She angrily opened the email. Upon opening it, her eyes instantly widened. This is... Michele exclaimed, nearly pressing her face against the monitor. Invitation to participate in the Super Player Tournament. The Super Player Tournament was a grand event for all Strinova's video game enthusiasts. Top players from various games, strategic masters from video game forums, and well-known shoutcasters compete for the ultimate prize of being the super player. Michele, who was both a top-ranked player and strategic mastermind, certainly wouldn't miss such an event. During her student days, whenever the ID Super Protector appeared on the field, she was always a strong contender for the grand prize. However, since officially becoming an investigator, in order to not miss any work-relevant info, Michele hadn't used her old gaming ID nor logged into the linked video game forum account for such a long time. As such, Super Protector had essentially disappeared, only mentioned in posts such as the Catalog of Retired Legends. Oh, right, Michele thought aloud, pressing a finger to her chin. I haven't received invitations to participate in this competition for a while. How come I suddenly... She clocked on the player information in the current game. The name Little Cat Guardian was at the top of the rankings, and the account background. Why is this account linked to an investigator's contact number? Okay. Time passes. Arton City is always bustling with people. On the opening day of the Super Player Tournament, the area around the competition venue was especially packed with people. On the opening day of the Super Player Tournament, the area around the competition venue was especially packed with people. The security robot working at the ticket gate worked until its frame overheated. When it got to the girl with the twin ponytails wearing a no-feeding mask, it got stuck. Level 3 Investigator. The robot's display froze for a moment, then displays Michelle's investigator certificate. It kept buffering, stalled at the words identity confirmation in progress. Before the robot finished loading, Michele raised her entry certificate in front of her face. The robot's speaker emitted a louder sound, and it took 5 seconds to react before finally closing the investor authentication interface and displayed a cat-eared dumpling game avatar and corresponding ID. Contestant Little Cat Guardian, welcome, have fun. Each contestant had a separate lounge backstage in order to protect players' personal privacy and maintain confidentiality. Players would not meet each other before the game, instead going directly into a soundproof room from each individual lounge. The staff guided Michele to her own exclusive lounge. After carefully checking that there was no monitoring equipment installed by any of the POS lackeys, she took off her mask and breathed a sigh of relief. That was close. I can actually confirm my identity without revealing my face. It's quite hard to guard against. Despite it being during a vacation by POS regulations, if an investigator logs into any security defense system on vacation, it would be regarded as a special situation and automatically cancel the vacation. Michele recalled the tragic experiences of her predecessors, such as accidentally canceling leave by face scanning and when riding public transportation, and accidentally canceling leave by even looking directly in the card machine when paying. As such, she wore a mask on purpose, and even then nearly made the same mistake. Once the identity of an investigator is confirmed via face scans of the security robot, the person entering the competition would not be Little Cat Guardian, but instead Investigator Michele Lee. Time passes. The gamer type hosted in each year's Super Player Tournament competition differs, with the final game decided by votes from the organizer and all video game enthusiasts. Even the contestants. have to wait until the competition actually begins before they could find find out the grand prize. This is an extreme test of the players' on-the-spot reaction ability and gaming mindset. Therefore, every grand prize competition is a challenge for invited players to stake their ID and reputation. Dear video game experts, after fierce voting, the gamer type that will be used in the Super Player Tournament is... The masked host on stage hyped up the atmosphere with this high-pitched voice and was about to announce the levels of this competition. The cheers of the audience nearly penetrated the lounge's soundproofing, and Michelle, infected by the atmosphere, rubbed her hands excitedly. Tower defense! Ah! The tower defense-liking audience cheered wildly, but Michelle just scratched her head. Strategy games weren't exactly her strong suit, making today's game potentially very difficult. The organizer then announced the rules of the game. It would be divided into preliminaries and finals. In the preliminaries, each player oversees a city, which will produce resources. Players need to use these resources to build walls and weapons to repel monster attacks. At the same time, along with differences in resource management strategies and combat strategies, various random events would also occur. These random events may either bring huge benefits to players or hinder the process. The top 8 players in the qualifying round will advance to the final round. In the final, players would be divided into defenders and attackers to complete in multiple rounds of tower defense. Finally, a winner would be chosen to receive the title of Super Player and the grand prize. Rather than pure gaming reflexes, this year's grand prize competition seems to focus more on the battle of brains. It's worth noting that in the preliminaries, players accumulate points by killing monsters. However, city occupation by monsters before the end of the game would result in competition disqualification. Michele had always liked to play video games in a refreshing and aggressive style. After just 10 minutes into the game, her score was already far ahead of the others. Fast strategy games tend to not be as entertaining as action games for the sake of better audience experience. The organizer gradually increased the number and attack power of the monster's onslaught. By intentional design, most of the contestants would fail to the monsters, and the ones who would actually enter the finals would be the 8 remaining survivors. 15 minutes in, and more monsters surrounded the city, stretching resource production. The players have to start resisting by frequently dispatching different types of guards. Michele aggressively deployed a lot of high-attack power weapons in the early stages, but at the last moment she was unable to deploy a perfect defense circle due to limited resources. To make matters worse, because the city walls were too thin, a public panic negative random event broke out within the city. Michele's main health city was down to 10 HP with 9 players still left. Already don't have a plan. The title is Super Player, after all. Suddenly, the 4th-ranked player made a major mistake. A gap in his defense was torn open. His city's health was instantly reduced to 0, and his name disappeared from the leaderboard. Boom! All the monsters disappeared. Fireworks exploded over the main city. The screen gradually darkened, and 4 big words appeared in front of Michele. Congratulations on being shortlisted. Chapter 2. Michele lazily stretched her arms upon walking outside the venue. The cool breeze blew on her face that was red hot from intensive thinking, making her squint her eyes and the cat ears on her sweatshirt hood shake. Since it was the intermission right before the finals, there were long queues at all the stalls selling various drinks and snacks around the venue. That little cat guardian played really well today. I think she'll place well in the finals. Not necessarily. That player had very little health left at the end. Felt like they made it to the finals by luck. Such a pity regarding number 4. He was quite stable leading up to that. Had he held on for another 2 seconds, he might have made it onto the finals. The surrounding audience were enthusiastically discussing their favorite contestants, guessing who would win this year's Super Player Award, and even talking to Michele. Yeah, everyone's really good, Michele affirmed, nodding repeatedly. She wanted to join in on the discussion, but was afraid of exposing her identity, so she could only look around and pretend to be busy. Well, the team is well organized, venue guidance was clear, and safety passages were left unobstructed. As expected. No, wait a moment. Michele's gaze turned to the fountain in the square. There was a pool under the fountain where many children were playing. Among the running and jumping children, a boy that was standing still just stood out. He did not join in the other children's games, and was instead just stood there, stiffly. Even though his parents kept encouraging him to go play, he did not respond. If it were someone else, they might just think that the boy was too introverted and timid. But Michele knew that this was not a normal standing position. That's morbid dullness. If a Strinovan's body were to be compared to a hard drive, consciousness is the data stored in it. As data continues to accumulate, one day the hard drive will crash due to memory overload. When memory and information reach its capacity limit, it becomes difficult for people to anchor their sense of self. First, one would enter a dazed state of induced confusion, followed by hallucinations, confused thinking, blurred consciousness, and finally succumbing to a berserk collapse. This is the collapse syndrome, the shadow that lurks in the world of Strinova. In addition to the string nodes that increase with experience and accumulation of memories, a Strinovan's original string sequence will also change due to natural factors, external damage, individual differences, etc. Cases of breakdowns among very young individuals are rare, but they do exist. This series of conditions that this child was experiencing was very similar to the early stages of collapse syndrome. This was also a symptom that Michele was all too familiar with. Many years ago, her father said goodbye to her before going on a mission, but the last time they met was in a hospital ward. Her father, an excellent investigator with top-notch reasoning, investigation experience, and physical combat abilities, sat blankly on the hospital bed, not responding to any of her calls. The investigator's personal physician then told her that her father was suffering from collapse syndrome. Fortunately, PUS had extensive experience in dealing with collapse syndrome, and thus discovered and controlled George Lee's collapse syndrome at a very early age. A very early stage, Unfortunately, since George Lee's collapse syndrome had not developed in a standard manner, the typical reincarnation treatment was unable to be performed. The solution that was finally proposed was to rely on high concentrations of Bablo energy to fix the degree of collapse at its current level. The catch was that the patient would be unable to generate any new memories. That is, he must remain in a medically induced coma. From that day onward, Michele, who had originally focused all of her attention on investigator training, devoted some of her energy to learning about collapse syndrome, especially in regards to early identification and prevention. Her seriousness and expertise at this point was almost as good as that of a professional doctor. That kid. Michele left the team and rushed to the center of the square. What's wrong with you today? Don't you usually like making new friends? Go quickly, child. The other kids are calling you. The boy's father gently pushed on his son's shoulder, but the originally smart and lively boy just shook his body with a blank expression. After attempting to coax him for a while, the adults finally lost patience, looked at each other in disgust. Why don't we go home for today? But I haven't watched the final yet. It was very difficult for me to get these tickets. Then go and see it for yourself. I'll take our son home. Don't say that. The originally dazed boy stiffly moved his eyes. The arguing parents did not notice that a faint blue Y-shaped crack appeared in the child's pupil, and even if they did see it, they might have thought that it was a reflection from the advertising screens and spotlights around the venue. Wait, let me take a look. Michele interrupted and ran over to them breathlessly and squatted down, held the child's shoulder and examined him carefully. After just a brief look, Michele gasped and muttered to herself, "It really is collapse syndrome." "Hey, who are you? Why are you touching my child?" The boy's father interrupted after coming to his senses. He proceeded to pull his son behind him and looked warily at the mask-wearing, suspiciously clothed girl. Michele, who was full of anxiety, forgot to take off her mask and identify herself, and hurriedly blurted, "The child needs treatment. He may be suffering from collapse." The father shot a mocking expression back at her. Liar. What's common sense to investigators is not actually not well understood by the public. Ordinary people have basically no chance of facing patients with on-the-spot collapse syndrome, as POS promptly takes them in and manages any patients with any occasional submissions after being sent to our albino hospital. In order to avoid causing widespread panic amongst the general public, most patients are admitted for other reasons, though this approach inevitably leads to public misunderstandings about POS. There is no better measure for the time being. Improving babocrystal purity, researching treatments to slow down deterioration, exploring the true wilderness at all costs. POS has never stopped working to find a solution to collapse syndrome. However, string theory is complicated, and turning it into a popular science is difficult. Disclosing incomplete results are more likely to cause unnecessary panic and rumors. Evil the Astral Sanctuary blurs out expressions related to collapse syndrome because fear is not conducive to a patient's recovery. At the same time, a small number of fraud gangs would sell health products to anxious people under the guise of collapse syndrome prevention. As an investigator, Michele has also participated in many anti-counterfeiting and anti-fraud operations. I didn't expect to be treated as a liar in this moment. Baby, what's wrong with you? At that moment, the mother finally noticed that something was wrong with her child and screamed. Faint blue stripes spread up from his neck, and in the pupils of his eyes expanded to nearly and completely engulf his whites. The children around them also noticed the abnormality, and proceeded to break out into tears, throwing themselves into the arms of their parents. Mutation, collapse syndrome, monster. The discussions were getting louder and louder, and an atmosphere of panic faintly spread from where they were. Go, run. People who are affected by collapse syndrome will also collapse. A loud roar came from somewhere, and the scene erupted into complete chaos. The crowd fled in a panic in all directions away from them, with the adults shoving and cursing, the children falling to the ground and crying sharply. Stop making a fuss, don't panic, Michele yelled, stretched out her hands to try and stop them, but her voice was drowned out by the crowd. The child's parents held their beloved baby in their arms and stood there, completely at a loss. All they could see was the crowd running away, with only this strange girl standing next to them. Time passes. At that moment, Michele was also at a loss. What to do now? My superiors aren't here. I don't have enough authority, and I'm still on vacation, so I don't have mission permissions. But when she joined POS, she and her colleagues swore to fight, to protect the people, and to safeguard the order of this world. At that moment, the person she needed to protect was standing behind her, and the order she needed to guard was collapsing before her very eyes. There's no time to hesitate. Since I've already violated the rules, I'm already a habitual offender. Michele ripped off her mask and looked firmly at the camera next to the foundation emblazoned with the POS logo. Level 3 investigator, Michele Lee, requesting identification. The smart camera turned and swept the laser across Michelle's body. Shortly afterward, an electronic voice sounded. Michele Lee, identity verification Verification passed. Level 3 permissions activated. Welcome back, investor. Requesting square-wide broadcast permissions. Request approved. Please note that the content of this broadcast will be sent to the Security Bureau Command. Michele took a deep breath and grabbed the floating microphone produced by the nearby security system. This is a PUS investigator. Someone on the scene has suddenly fallen ill. Please do not panic and follow all instructions. Please help children and those with disabilities around you, and keep your personal belongings safe. Pay attention to any official broadcasts and do not believe the rumors. Repeat, this is a PUS investigator. The girl's firm and confident voice resounded throughout the square, and people gradually quieted down, like boiling water that was gradually cooling down. Michele took the robot she always carries with her from her backpack and instructed, "Go, protectors." The round metal balls rolled about, sending signals to nearby security robots and integrating them into a defense and guidance system. The young investor, who had previously always stood behind her superiors and followed their orders, was not in a commanding position for the first time. Her heart was pounding, and her throat was so tight under the pressure she could hardly swallow. Not unlike the strategy in a video game, huh? Michele, you're a super player. It's just a large-scale tower defense game brought into reality. The difference is that the game requires inward defense, while now it also demands outward guidance. But the principle is similar. Security robots are just like resources in-game, and the mission objectives are also very clear. You just can't make any strategic mistakes, and not making a mistake is just a basic requirement for a Platinum Trophy achievement. As Michele thought about this, her heartbeat slowed and her thoughts cleared. The noise gradually faded away, as if she had returned to the soundproof room at the competition site. Follow my instructions. The security robots will direct you to exits A, D, and F. The security robots will be divided into groups of 3 and line up by channels 1, 3, and 5. Michele issued instructions in an orderly manner, stabilizing the order in the square. People's panic dissipated, and some people even gathered around to watch in curiosity. The only uneasy ones were the 3 members of the family, who were all looking at Michele as if they were waiting for a verdict. Chapter 3. Don't take my child away. Please, investigator. No, I'm not gonna do that, Michele denied, waving her hands in panic. At that moment, she was sitting cross-legged on the ground. In front of her were the parents who had collapsed to the ground after she explained the symptoms of collapse syndrome and the PUS shelter system, and the child, who kept moving around and had begun to hallucinate. We won't hurt him, and he's still in the early stages, so he can be completely controlled while waiting for the new treatment options. But people say that people with collapse disorder will never come back. You'll use them for experiments. Although she knew about some of the speculation and public opinion about PUS, this was the first time she faced such doubts. In their eyes, PUS was the ones who took away their families and was their enemy. But that isn't the case. Michele pursed her lips and told the parents, "My dad also suffers from collapse syndrome." The crying mother raised her head and blankly stared at Michele. Michele forced a smile and continued. Although he has been in a coma for a while, his condition has not worsened under PUS's treatment. I believe that one day, collapse syndrome can be cured and my father will wake up. Michele raised her head, looked into the mother's bloodshot red eyes, and firmly reassured her. Please believe that I feel the same way as you, and please be as hopeful as I am. Believe me, PUS is definitely the best choice for caring for collapse syndrome patients. The parents still hesitated, but all the while their child's conditions were still rapidly deteriorating. There was no time to waste, and they had to see results immediately. Michele gritted her teeth and used the terminal to send out a command. Soon, a drone flew over with a small safe. Michele bypassed its security system and illegally used the Bablo crystals stored inside. Michele arranged the crystals into several arrays and activated the energy field. The high concentration of Bablo energy formed a stable zone in the area, causing the child to visibly calm down. Bablo energy works well for this condition. I'm not a doctor, so I can't explain to you in detail how it works, but as you can see, it works. The father and mother looked at each other with uncertainty and finally nodded. After finally convincing the child's parents, Michele signaled for the medical team and reported her actions. The crowd of onlookers is getting more and more dense. If this continues, the medical team will be unable to pass through. Michele stood up and moved to disperse the crowd, but the worried parents, who had already regarded her as their lifeline, pulled at her clothes to prevent her from leaving. At the same time, a broadcast came from the venue announcing, 10 minutes remain before the final begins. Players should return to their lounges as soon as possible. Right. There's still a competition. It wasn't easy to make it to the finals. There's too many side quests today, Michele screamed in her heart. The medical team will be here soon. I need to clear a passage for them to evacuate, Michele explained. We'll let the security robots protect you. Hurry up, guys, Michele thought to herself, simultaneously attempting to unskillfully comfort the parents, while looking around for any trace of the medical team. Hey, who's that? Although the shadow of Michelle's superior wasn't seen, a familiar snail headpiece flashed from behind the crowd and turned its head after noticing her. Due to her parents tugging her clothes, Michele couldn't head into the crowd to grab her colleague that just appeared, and could only stand on her tiptoes shouting and jumping and waving desperately. Yugiri! Yugiri! The crowd looked over with puzzled eyes. Yugiri sighed, walked out of the crowd, and came up to Michele. I was just passing by to get ice cream. When I saw so many people here, I thought it was an internet celebrity stall. With sunglasses on and Yugiri expressionlessly remarked, I shouldn't have been so serious. The captain told me to stay away from POS colleagues when I'm on vacation. I'm on vacation too, but when an emergency occurs as a POS investigator, I still have to step up, Michele replied, patting Yugiri on the shoulder. Yugiri still remained in an emotionless expression and replied, I'm not a formal investigator. If operations require the captain to give me orders personally. Don't be so by the book. At worst, you can use my authority to act. Just help me first. You're violating the rules. I've already violated the rules 100 times today. Yugiri sighed. I'll ask the captain to talk to you about the overseas assignment bonus. Despite saying this, she took off her sunglasses and continued. I'll follow your commands. 5 minutes later, the two POS members finally cleared a path for the medical team to pass through. Yugiri had laid down a seemingly untouchable cordon on the ground, separating the crowd of onlookers. When the medical team arrived, Michele saw a sea hare-styled healing drone fly in front. Wait, a sea hare drone. Michele seemingly suddenly remembered the number of rule violations she had committed today, and it was as if she could see the amount of apology paperwork she'd have to do pressing down on her. At least let me take a break for today, Michele thought to herself. While the medical team was taking in the patient and communicating with the family and holding up coconut, Michele took the opportunity to stuff the terminal and 3 protectors into Yugiri's arms. Wait, I've got something else to do. Please go report to Instructor Coconut. Thanks for your hard work today. See you later. Confused, Yugiri could only let out a, huh? While grasping onto the protectors thrown into her arms, which were still spinning around in confusion. She's already run off. With only 30 seconds left before the start of the finals, Michele ran straight into the contestant room as if she were running a 100-meter sprint amidst the staff's shocked gazes, punched in her login credentials as she was fighting the floor boss, and made it just in time for the start of the finals. Although Michelle's heartbeat and breathing hadn't yet calmed down, her mind was as clear as ever. In-game, there were no lively and dense crowds, no sudden and illogical situations, and no need to deal with emotions or public opinions. The data and algorithms were so clear and readable that Michele, who had just escaped from a bunch of chaos, suddenly found that the original headache-inducing strategy game felt suddenly simple. There were no more headaches about thinking itself, rather when thinking about an overall situation turned into a subconscious passive skills, the optimal solution would naturally appear before one's very eyes. After 3 rounds of matches, golden pieces of paper floated outside Michelle's soundproof room like a golden rain, indicating the identity of this contestant as the super player. I hereby declare that the final winner of this year's Super Player Tournament is contestant Little Cat Guardian. Congratulations, Little Cat Guardian. Time passes. Logging in as an investigator means immediate cancellation of leave. The holiday came to a screeching halt, and the day after competition, Michele was forced to return to work and face the superior she at least wanted to face. Please don't be Coconut, please don't be Coconut, please don't be Coconut, Michele pleaded with herself. She begrudgingly clocked in and entered the command post. However, Michelle's prayers didn't work. Inside the command post, Coconut was posted up with her arms folded and a serious face, as if she was waiting for this opportunity. Level 3 Investigator Michele Lee. Present. Publicly broadcasting without following the prescribed format, taking reserved materials without permission, disrupting security systems, and using an investigator's account to register for a video game, and to top it all off, cooperation with Special Forces members without prior reporting, causing this department to lose a large amount of budget due to the use of the other party. Do you know how expensive it is to use Compound I members? Michelle's head lowered as Coconut rattled off her violations one by one. By the end of it, she had almost curled up into a ball and didn't dare to look Coconut in the eye. For these several violations, you'll be subject to a 20,000-word self-reflection report, cleaning the shooting range for a month, and having your violating a game account banned, Coconut coldly announced. Yes. It's over. Michele turned around dejected, ready to plunge herself face first into endless self-reflection. Did I hear Instructor Coconut laugh? Maybe I misheard. Level 3 Investigator Michele Lee, Coconut suddenly shouted from behind her. Michele, startled, whipped around and was prepared to stand at attention and face the storm, only to see Coconut place her hands on her hips and loudly declare, "Ahem. However, you successfully maintained public order, conveyed correct information about collapse syndrome to the public, protected collapse syndrome patients, and changed public perception about POS's containment procedures. In short, it had been decided to commend Michele Lee and award her with the second-class Medal of Honor." Coconut pretended to be serious, but couldn't help herself from smiling. "Well done, my student. You've done me proud." In her dormitory, Michele placed the Super Player Grand Prize Medal and the Second-Class Medal of Honor together, where they shined brightly. She then proceeded to polish both medals and place them next to a photo of herself and her father. The idea of Little Cat Guardian appeared briefly in a certain competition, only to disappear without a trace, leaving behind only forum discussions and internet legends. But Michele didn't mourn the loss of this ID because, to her, the mission for this ID had ended. Super Player Little Cat Guardian has completed the game. Next up, the story of Investigator Michele Lee. And that's it. That was Michelle's character story, Super Player. And yeah, we've been live for approximately 2 hours now. And I think I'm going to end stream for here tonight. If you enjoyed these stories, I'm glad. And by all means, I hope I was able to help you fall asleep. Or at the very least, help you relax for a little bit. In the meantime, I am going to log off. I have some tasks that I need to take care of before tomorrow. I don't have work tomorrow, but I do have a meeting tomorrow, so I gotta go take care of that. I don't know if I'll be live just yet tomorrow figure out what I decide to play. But yeah, we're not gonna raid anyone tonight, as we don't raid anyone with these ASMR streams because the point of them is to help you fall asleep. And if you were to wake up on some random person's stream, well, it'd be funny, but probably not a good idea. And so, I'll leave you guys to it for the time being. I hope I was able to help you relax today, and thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. Sweet dreams, sleep well, and have a wonderful rest of your night.